So what we're going to talk about today is what we're going to start talking about today, we'll finish on Monday next week, is budgeting. Okay? What is a budget?
What you have to spend?
Okay, so what you have to spend, it could be a fixed amount, good. Okay? It's a plan. Okay? It's a plan about how we're going to spend our money. Okay? It can be fixed, it can be flexible a little bit, but primarily our budget is a plan. And we're going to budget and we're going to forecast. Okay? Forecast as well. So when we forecast and when we budget, we're basically, when we're forecasting, we're predicting the future based on what? Based on the past. So we're going to predict the future based on what happened in the past. Okay, that's when we forecast, and we're typically going to forecast to create our budget. Okay, we're going to create that plan. How many of you have ever heard your manager at work say, "I don't have any more in my labor budget"? How many of you have ever heard that say it? Which means they spent too much money already. They have to cut hours because they have a certain budget they have to spend on labor. An actual dollar amount that they get to spend each month or each pay period or each whatever on labor. And so if they're out of money, then they either have to cut people and send them home and work with a skeleton crew, or they have to justify why they went over budget on the labor cost. So an advantage of having a budget is it gives us a clear path. It's just like any kind of thing, like a goal. That budget gives us a clear identification. Otherwise, if I as a manager had no idea that I only had $10,000 to spend on labor, then what's there to stop me from just spending $20,000 on labor? Okay, I can spend whatever I want because I don't have a budget. But if I have that budget, it keeps me in line. We know that if we can decrease our expenses while still maintaining quality, then that can add to our profit. Okay? A disadvantage of our budgets is they take time. So time that we could be using to work on something else in the restaurant or in the hotel, the budgets take time to compile all that information. It also takes a lot of time because oftentimes people are working with different departments. So if you're looking at the operational budget as a whole, and let's say in a restaurant you have the bar budget, you have the front of the house budget, and you have the kitchen budget. That's 3 different groups of people you have to get together to create that budget. In a hotel, you have front office, you have housekeeping, you have maintenance, you have food and beverage, you have catering and sales, you just have operations in general, you have human resources. All those people have to come together to make budgets. And so one of the disadvantages is that it is also time consuming. The other disadvantage of budgets, how many of you have ever heard this before? You spend it or you lose it. Right? You spend it or you lose it. If you don't spend your whole budget, then your boss is probably going to say, well, last year you managed to operate with this budget. So guess what? This is your new budget. If it's less than what you did, if it's less than what you budgeted, then potentially people will start overspending on unnecessary things just because they have it in their budget. They don't want to lose it. And so they're like, oh, I got to spend this money before the budget ends. Otherwise, I'm going to lose it. The government is a good example of that. Okay? Spend it before you lose it. I didn't say it. She mouthed it. Okay? I was just verbalizing what she mouthed. Yes, there are some disadvantages to budgets. Okay, it might lead to excess spending for no reason, where in reality, that could potentially lead to a bonus, or it could lead to additional profit. Okay. So forecasting. When we're looking at forecasting, we're predicting based on the previous time. Okay. Oh, that's my 10-minute warning. Okay, so forecasting, we're looking at predicting the future based on what happened in the past. Typically, when we forecast, we are either increasing or we are decreasing. Okay? I mean, those are your only two options, really. I mean, I guess you could say the same if you wanted to. But increasing or decreasing, and typically it's either by a flat dollar amount or it's by a percentage, okay? It's by a percentage. So let's do a quick percentage example. Let's say we had 100 guests, okay? We had 100 guests last week on Monday. And so we're trying to figure out, well, how many guests can we expect for this Monday? Okay, that's our previous period was Monday of last time, okay? But let's say we now have a convention in town. So there was no convention last Monday, but now we have a convention in town. So I'm going to increase my projection by, let's say, 5%. By 5%. Okay? So I do 100 guests times what? 0.05, and I get 105 guests. Okay? I'm just going to put a cheek so I'm run out of space. 105 guests. Now what do I have to do? Actually, I'm so sorry. I only get 5 guests. That's what I get. 100 times 0.05 is 5 guests. Now what do I have to do? I have to add it back to my 100, right? So I add in 100, and I get 105 guests. Okay? That's a two-step process, right? Step 1. Step 2 is add. I'm going to show you how to make it into a one-step process. Okay, this is a shortcut. What's 100 times 100%? 100. 100 times 1, right? 100% as a decimal is 1. We move that decimal place over. So 100 times 1 equals 1. And so what do? We add these two numbers together. We get 1.05. And so if I do 100 times 1.05, I'm automatically going to get that 105. This is a shortcut. This is a one-step process. This is a two-step process. It's a multiply first and then add. Or you can just multiply by the 1.05. Okay? Does that make sense? Yes? No? Maybe so? Okay? So let's do one where we had a conference last week on Monday. I'm going to erase this. Okay, so we had a conference last week on Monday, and we had 200 guests. Okay? And now this Monday we don't have a conference. And so I'm going to decrease by 12%. That's kind of random. Let's just do, I'm trying to make it difficult. Okay, so we're going to do it. We're going to decrease by 12%. Decrease by 12%. Okay, so the first step is to take our original 200 times 12% gives me what? So it gives me 24, right? 200 times 0.12 is 24. 24 guests. Now I come down here, I do my 200 times 1.00, and I get 200, right? So I subtract those, I get 176. Since I subtracted here, if I subtract here, what's 100 minus 0.12? So if I do my 200 times 0.88, it'll automatically give me 176. Okay? So this is our two-step process. One step, and then our second step is to subtract. This is our one-step process. Okay? Whatever way works for you, we'll do some more of this on Monday. Okay, whatever way works for you, do it. Now granted, I know you're probably thinking 24 minus 200 is negative 176, right? I just dropped the negative. Okay, you could put the 200 up here since we are subtracting 200 from 24 from 200. But I just kept it in the same way. You just drop that negative side, and it gives you the 176. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns about that? All right. So, watch this. This is gonna be a short video for chapter 2. Watch this over the weekend a couple of times. Practice. Play with some different numbers. Okay. And then I'll see you on Monday. There will be a short quiz on Monday when we start class.
Over this?
Over chapter 2. We just talked about just that forecasting, increasing and decreasing.
Where's